Good morning.
Okay, 33b, 3 lines from the bottom. So we're talking about you have a gated house between your garden and between your regular house. So the question was, where do you put a mezuzah? So yesterday we saw two opinions that what was the primary purpose? Was the primary purpose of this gated house for your house, and therefore you would put a mezuzah when you enter? Or is the primary purpose for the garden, and then when you come in from the garden, you would not put a mezuzah? So last 2-3 lines on 33b. Rabba v'Rav Yosef Amir Travayu mibayis legina, from this gated house to your garden, the kule amalo pligi de pater. For sure, you're not going to put a mezuzah there. My time of piska deginahu. It's an opening of a garden. Ki pligi. When do they argue? Migina lebayis, from the garden to the gated house, the Beis Shar. So what is their dispute? Mar Savar Bia de Bayasu. One opinion holds that's the entrance to the house. So you have an entrance to the house, so you're going to put a mezuzah when you're coming in from the garden. Mar Savar, Umar Savar, Kulo Adaita the Gilahu. Next page, the other opinion says that it all was made for the purpose of entering into the garden, and therefore it would not require mezuzah. Abai v'Rava of the Kirabba v'Rav Yosef. Abai and Rava, they did like Rava and Rav Yosef, that from the house, from the gated house into the Gina, they did not put a zazah. And Rav Ashi of it Kirav and Shmuel. And Rav Ashi did like yesterday, like Rav and Shmuel, that say that from the garden to the gated house, you have to put a mezuzah. So each one of these opinions did like their predecessors. So Rav Ashi of the Kirav Shmuel Chumra, and he put a mezuzah on that doorway from the garden into the gated house. The Hilchasa Kirav v'Shmuel l'Chumra, and the halacha is like Rav and Shmuel, to be stringent and put a mezuzah from the garden into the gated house, to put a mezuzah there. Okay, now Itmar Lul Pasuach min Abayis Laliyah. So you have 2 floors of a house, and you have this opening that goes. Basically, what they had a stairwell that went from the first floor to the second floor, and you had people living upstairs. So you didn't want to have this, them just be able to walk down into your house, or you walk into their house. So you made this like a 4 mechitzos. You made this like separated area between your house, between your downstairs and their upstairs. So to separate the two. So now Lul Pasuach min Abayis Laliyah. So this opening that was open from the first floor to the upstairs to the second floor. Amar Rav Huna, Im Yeshlo Pesach Echad Chayav b'mezuzah achas. If there's one opening to it, so then you're going to put one mezuzah. So let's say simply downstairs had put like a enclosed area, and there was an opening onto the stairwell to go up. So, and there was also an opening to come down into that first floor. So you would put a mezuzah so this way you can only come downstairs with permission. So you'd put a mezuzah downstairs as it's the entranceway into the house downstairs. So im yeshlo shtei psachim, if it has 2 openings, meaning both the downstairs and the upstairs, they both have 2 entranceways to allow not only downstairs to enter into upstairs, but upstairs to also enter into downstairs. So then each one is going to be chayiv a mezuzah. So im yeshlo shtei psachim each entranceway is chayiv b'shtei mezuzos, is liable to put on, you're chayiv to put, you're obligated to put a mezuzah both on the upstairs entrance going into the second floor and in the downstairs entrance going into the first floor. Now, the next statement's a discussion how exactly he knows this from this current statement. It's not so clear, but Amar of Papa, from here we learn, the question is how you learn it from here, but from here we learn, Shma Mina, Midar Rav Huna, that Hayi in Druna, the Islay, Arba'a, Bave, Chayiv Ba'arba Mezuzos. If you have a place that you have 4 openings, you have an entrance with 4 openings, then you're liable to have 4 mezuzahs. Says Gemara Pshita, that's obvious. Yes, if you have 4 entranceways, you'll put 4 mezuzahs. Says the Gemara, there's a novelty. Lo tzricha afal gav de ragil b'chad. Even though you usually use one of the entranceways, you'll still put a mezuzah in all 4 places. Now, Rashi's bothered by that. We had earlier that when you have 2 places and one is the ragil, one is the normal way you go, so you only put a mezuzah on that doorway, not on the other doorway. And here we see when it's 4 doorways, even if one is the common one, you put on all of them. So what's the difference? So first explanation of Rashi is it depends if it's 2 or 4. If you have 2 entranceways and one is really the common one, so the second one is batal, it's so to speak nullified to the first one. You view it as a secondary, it's not the entranceway. When you have 4 entranceways, you can't really say that there's 4 entranceways. We don't say 3 of them are nullified to 4. We don't say like that. Okay. Amar Ameimar says, Hayi Pischa, I think there's pictures for this. Hayi Pischa de Akrana Chayiv be Mezuzah. So you have like the corner of the house. The corner of the house, you have a entranceway right in the corner. So that's Chayiv and a Mezuzah. So Amar Rav Ashi Lemeimar v'Hales lePtzimin, but there's no boards. I mean, there's no. It sounds like you just have walls. There's no doorposts. So Amar Le Ede Ptzime, you're right. The walls themselves are the boards. They are enough to be the doorposts. Rav Papa, Ikle Be Mar Shmuel. Rav Papa went to the house of Mar Shmuel, and Chaza he saw Hahu Pischa Delo Havale Ela Patzim Echad Mismola V'Avid Le Mezuzah. He saw that there was he only had these the walls themselves. Sorry, no, he didn't. Not the walls. He only had, sounds like one doorpost, mismola. The avidele mezuzah. There was one of them on the left side, and he put a mezuzah on there. So Amar Le Kiman Kirav Meir says, who's that like? Like the opinion of Rav Meir, as we'll see shortly. So says the Gemara, no. Aimad Amar Rav Meir miyamin. Rav Meir said if you have one board, one doorpost, so then you put on the right side. But mismol miyamar, meaning Rav Meir will agree that you don't have to have 2 doorposts, but he only said his statement when it was on the right side, not on the left side. So okay, so Maihi. So what exactly is his opinion of Rav Meir, and how do you know that when you have a doorpost like we do, it has to be on the right side? Now it says the Gemara, because it says uksaftem al mezuzos beisecha. The Gemara doesn't interpret the word beisecha. There's different ways to understand it. Maybe it's extra because it already says b'sharecha. Maybe the way it's written, it should have said something else. Beisecha can also be read biascha min hayamin. That when you enter, the word beisecha and biascha are similar. That it's coming in. It's coming in from the right side. So beisecha biascha, it's the way you come in. You come in from the right. So ata omer min hayamin o ein el small mismol. Who says coming in from the right? Maybe coming in from the left. Talmud lomar. It says beischa. So it says beischa. What does that teach you? My Talmuda. What is that teaching you? How do you see from the word beischa? It has to be the right. Amar Rabba derech biyascha min hayamin dechiak enish kare diamina akar. Because when people, usually the norm is when you start going somewhere, so then you're going to use you're going to uproot your right foot first. So your entrance into wherever you're going starts with the right foot. So biyascha, that's how you know that biyascha, entering, is with your right foot. So it's like a two-step process. One is that it's read as entering, and two is that entering is with the right. So Rav Shmuel bar Acha kamed Rav Papa mishmei Rav bar Ula amar mehacha. So Rav Shmuel, the son of Acha, said in front of Rav Papa in the name of Rav bar Ula, you learn Malachim vayikach Yehoyada haKohen Aaron echad. He took a Aaron vayikav chor bedalaso, and he made a hole in the doorway of the Aaron. V'yiten also etzel mizbeach miyamin bevo ish beis Hashem, and he put it on the right side when you enter into the house of Hashem. V'nasnu shama hakohanim shomer yasaf as kol hakesed hamuva. So, and that's where the kohanim, the ones who guarded, they put all their money there. So, what do you see though? That he put it on the entranceway from the right. That you see the entranceway is when you walk in. So from the Azar, from the courtyard, and you keep going from east to west, keep going west. The Aron is going to be on your right side because when you enter, it should be on the right because the right is the way of entering. So anything you put in the way of entering is going to be on the right. Okay, fine. So that's how you know it has to be on the right. Now, what's this Rav Meir we mentioned earlier? My Rav Meir. If you only have one doorpost. So it's funny, the word patzim sounds like it's plural, but maybe it should be patz. But here patzim could refer to singular as well. So if you have patzim, I guess it's just a place where a door could close. Even I don't have to be like an hour doorpost, the full length, but even a place where there's some kind of peg pivot to close the door, something there. So as long as you have one of those, that's going to be enough. So Rav Meir mechayev mezuzah l'chamin potrin. Rav Meir says one doorpost is enough, and the Chacham said you have to have two. Why do you have to have two doorposts? Why do you have to have one doorpost? So my time in the Rabbanon, it says mezuzos ksiv in the plural, two doorposts. Very simple. My time in the Rav Meir, the Tanya, mezuzos. So Rav Meir says, because the following brisa, it says mezuzos. So shomei ani miyot mezuzos shtayim. The minimal amount of doorposts sounds like two. Kishihu omer mezuzos beparsha shniya. Then it repeats it again it says again, uksaftem al mezuzos. It repeats it mezuzos. She'ein tamad lomar. You don't need to say because you told me that already. So that's called haviribi acharibu acharibu el l'mayit. So whenever you have two inclusions, two things that are inclusive, it's really coming to exclude. So you're telling me two. You're telling me two again. You're telling me two twice, and you're really coming to exclude. So miyato akasav lemezuzah akas. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says we're coming to exclude one, and you only require one doorpost, not two. Rabbi Akiva Omer Eino Tzarich. You don't need that teaching. Rather, Kishu Omer Al Hamashko Val Shtei Hamezuzos. It says by leaving Egypt, they put their blood where they put it on Al Shtei Hamezuzos, on two of their doorposts and on the lintel. Now, if mezuzos means two, why did you write two mezuzos? That's repetitive. That's like, so mezuzos by definition means two. So why'd you say two? So she'ein tamalom arshtei, ma'atalam arshtei. So to teach you the rule. Zeban av, this is the rule. Kol makom shenamar mezuzos einu ela achas. Whenever it says mezuzos, it means one. Achi farla kasov shtayim. Until the Torah specifies two, it's going to mean one. So both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, different ways to get there, but they both conclude that one doorpost is enough, either because they repeated mezuzos twice, or because, or from leaving Egypt, you see that it specifically says shnei mezuzos to teach you that if it just says mezuzos, shtei mezuzos, if it just says mezuzos, then it's going to be one. So that's the source for Rav Meir. Obviously, the rabbis will have to answer each one of these comments and figure out what they do with it. Okay. Now, Tana Rabbanan uksaftem. You would have thought you could just write your mezuzah. Write them on stones. Who said you need parchment? So Namar Kan Ksiva, Namar Halang Ksiva. It says by a get that you have to write it. It says the word writing, and it says writing here. Mala Halan Ala Sefer, Afkan Ala Sefer. It says on the. We know Sefer means book, but there it means like a scroll. So, which means on parchment. Ala Sefer, Afkan Ala Sefer. That's one way to look at it. Or look at it the other way. Namar Kan Ksiva, V'Namar Lahalan Ksiva. Just like it says on stones, and it says on stones when Moshe wrote the Torah, when you enter into Israel, they're going to write the Torah. It says Uksaftim al ha'avanim as called Divrei Torah Hazos. So there it also says Ksiva, and here it says Ksiva, and there it's on stones Afkan al ha'avanim. So which way do you go? Near limidoma done in Ksiva hanohegas adoros, Meksiva hanohegas adoros. The ain done in Ksiva hanohegas adoros, Meksiva she'eno nohegas ledoros. If you're going to learn one, you're going to learn one that applies to all generations. Writing a get, unfortunately, applies to all generations. It always comes up. So therefore, tefillin, mezuzah also applies for all generations, as opposed to writing it on stones was a unique instruction for that time, and therefore we're not going to learn from there. Ukimoshe namar lahalon. Just like we say later on in Yirmiyah, Yomer Lahan Baruch mipiv yikare Elias Devar Ma'ela, Mani Kosev ala Sefer b'dayo. So tell me these words, and I'm going to write it on a sefer with ink. So you see, you got to write it on a sefer on parchment. Yeah. Yeah. So Amar Le Rav Acha Brei the Rav Ashi Rachmana Amar al Mezuzos the At Amris Neilef Ksiva. It says that you should write it on mezuzos. Read the Torah literally. No, read it literally. Write it on your doorpost. How could you tell me Ksiva? Ksiva tells me you should write it on parchment. Write it directly on your doorposts. So. Once again, another place where if you only believe in the written Torah, what are you going to do with this? So no one writes it in history that we know on doorposts. Yeah.
Shulchanim.
Yeah. Oh.
Above their house.
Your neighbors.
The neighbors. They have Shema Yisrael.
The whole mezuzah.
No, just the first parak Shema Yisrael in stone. They write it in stone.
Why just Shema Yisrael not Vayim Shmuel?
Because they're Shemronim and not Yehudim. But they have it above the house.
Above the house, wow.
Right above the door.
Wow, okay. So they bring a Korban Pesach every year, right?
Yes, those are the ones.
Those are the ones. So, okay. So uksaftem, it says uksaftem, which the oral Torah teaches you. You can read it, the kasav tam, ksiva tama, the hadar almud has to be a perfect writing, meaning if you write it on a stone, it's going to, now we're not talking about engraving. We'll get to engraving in a second. Here, just writing it on a stone, it's going to wear away. As opposed to writing it on parchment, that's considered a ksiva tama. As opposed to wood and stones, is not. So you have to do a ksiva tama v'hadar ala mezuzos, and then you put on your doorpost. So uma'achar deksiv uksaftem. So once it says uksaftem, ksaftam, so then hay gzeir shavalamali. What do you need the gzeir shava for? So ilav gzeir shava. If not for the gzeir shava, you would have thought havamina lichteva avna v'likva aseifa. You would have thought you could actually engrain it on a stone, and the engravement was going to last better than writing. You're going to engrave it, etch out in the stone. There's etched out.
Yeah, they're engraved.
Wow, amazingly terrible. Yeah, so they're engraved in the stone, and that's what you would have thought, if not for the Gzeir Shava. So that we say, Kamash Malon, that we have a Gzeir Shava teaching you that it has to be written on parchment, and then ksiva on the parchment and then put it on your doorpost. This concludes our mezuzah journey. Now we go on to tefillin. Arba parshios shebetefillin ma'akvos zu es zu. We have 4 V'haya kivyacha kadesh yikol b'chor shma and v'haya im shamoa. Those 4 parshios, the Mishnah told us, you need each one. If you're missing one, the whole thing's invalid. Ma'akvos zu azu v'afilu k'tzad echad ma'akvan. Right? Even one writing, now even one letter is going to be, if it's missing, the whole thing is invalid. Pshita, isn't that obvious? Amar Rabbi Rav, you're right. If you're missing a letter, it's not good. But there's the very top of the yud that well, I think we had a 3-way debate about this last time. I had a kutzah shud. Does it mean the very top? Does it mean the very bottom? I think what? Yeah. So I think there's 3 opinions, and then we're showing exactly what the kutzah shud is. But let's just go with let's say the top of the yud. If you're missing a little part of the yud, so then it's going to be invalid. So the hanami pshita, obviously a yud's a yud. If you're missing part of it, it's invalid. You need it for the other opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Every letter in the Torah has to be surrounded on 4 sides with parchment, meaning if it's connected to another letter, it's invalid. So that really is a novelty, because if you have the letter there but it's connected, you could discern it as its own letter, but still, because the halacha is you have to have parchment around all sides. If it's connected, it's going to be invalid. Next page. Tanu Rabbanan, it says in a brisa. Okay, this part's pretty interesting. Litotafos. So it says this 3 times. Now, the way our Gemara has it is twice it's without a vav, and 1 it's with a vav. So, Hare Kan Arba. So, how do you know you have to have 4 parshas in 4 different sections, at least for your head to fill in? It says Litotafos Beinenecha, but it says it 4 times. The first 2 times are missing a vav. When you have a vav, it's plural. And we know there's in general a debate. Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel, do you go after the way it's written or after the way it's read? So if you go after the way it's written, so you're missing the vav, which means it's in the singular, which means that you have the totafos. The totafos is singular. That's only 2. And then the totafos with the vav is plural. That's 2 more. So that's 4. So Hare Kan Arba, Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. That's the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva Omer Eino Tzarech. You don't need that derivation because tat bekat vishtayim and pat be'afraki shtayim. So the word tat in a language called katvi is 2, and pat be'afraki is 2. And African is 2. Now, obviously, people are jumping out of their seats and falling out. What do you mean? We're using African in the Torah. So we mentioned at least one answer is that at one point, I think the article brought a footnote from the Shlach Kadosh that all languages started from the Torah language until they were dispersed after Migdal Bavel. So really, all other languages have their roots in Hebrew. So it's not a totally different thing. So since it's rooted in Hebrew, it's not so crazy, so to speak. So that's one answer. I think there's other answers as well. But tat bekat ishtayim, tat be'afrik ishtayim, and therefore the word itself means 4. Tanu Rabbanan yachol yichteveim al arba oros. So you could have thought, and that's where I sent out the video on with Rabbi Stefanski. You would have thought you could write it on 4 hides. Vayanichem ba'arba batim. Write it on 4 hides and put it into 4 sections. So ba'arba oros. So you would write it on 4 hides and then put into the 4 batim. So ba'arba oros Talmud lomar zikaron beinenecha. Zikaron echad amarti lach v'lo b'shtayim v'shlosha zichrono. So you have to have 4, but you have to have 1. It's 1 zikaron, but yet we just said 4. So how do you do it? Ha ketzad kosvin al arba oros. You could write it on 4 pieces of parchment, and you put it into the 4 pieces. You put them into the 4 parts of the tefillin shel rosh. Our tefillin shel rosh, there's 4 compartments. So you'll put 4 pieces of parchment into each of those 4 compartments. Yeah. Now, kosan arba oros umanichin ba'arba batim. Be'or echad. If you're using one parchment, so what do? V'im kasan be'or echad v'hinichin ba'arba batim yatsa. If you happen to have one parchment and you're going to put it into four sections of your tefillin shalosh, how exactly you're going to do that is you leave a big space between the four parts and you can fold it in. Maybe you cut it out a little bit and so that it folds, so that it goes in. So, yeah, you're still yotze. You still fulfilled your obligation. However, but you have to make sure that between the sections, between the parshios, you're going to have a break. Divrei Rebbe. You don't need to have a break between the parshios. However, v'shavin shenosan chut o meshicha ben kol achas achas. But you have to have some kind of string at the end of these sections. I guess to between each section, you have to have some kind of string, and that's going to it's going to connect. I guess it's going to connect the four parchments in the four sections of the tefillin shalosh. So have some kind of string that's going to connect them. Yeah. Now, another halacha is v'im ein charitzan nikar psulos. On the outside of tefillin shalosh, you have to have those demarcated lines that show you from the outside that it's actually four sections. If you don't have that demarcation on the outside, those lines going down on the tefillin shalosh, that's going to invalidate it. Even if you have inside the tefillin, it's demarcated, but if you have to have it on the outside. If you're at Torah fair, so you saw the middle school boys, Shirley and Mordechai Borsix, replica of tefillin, you saw there that it was demarcated very nicely in four sections. That's what it's saying. Tanu Rabbanan, Ketzad Kosvan, Tefillah Shel Yad. How do you write your hand to fill your arm tefillin? Kosva al or echad. That has to be on one parchment. Has to be like from one hide on one parchment. If you do it on four, but you put it into one to the one section inside your tefillin, then you have still fulfilled your obligation. Vitzarik ledabik, but you have to connect them, either with sewing, Rashi says, or with glue that's called glued. Old French glue is called glued. So, yeah, it sounds some kind of it says here some kind of very sticky, something that grows, some kind of not grass, but something that grows that's very sticky, that was used for trapping birds. That was the glue back then. Also used for bird trapping. I don't know if Elmer's glue is going to suffice for that. So, it has al yadecha. It has to be al yadcha. Sorry, it has to be a sign on your hand, on your arm. Kishem she'os achas mi b'chutz, kach os achas mi b'fnim. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Just like on the outside, there has to be a sign. It's only one. You see, it's not engraved at all. There's no four things going down the side of your arm to fill in. So too, inside it has to be one. Yeah, so you can't have four separate pieces of parchment. It has to be all one. Rabbi Yossi Omer Eino Tzarich. You don't need to make the inside one. As long as it's in one box is fine. Some Rabbi Yossi says, Modali Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, who just said that you have to have one sign on the inside, just like you have one sign on the outside. Umodali Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimlo tefillin shel yad, v'yesh lo shtei tefillin shel rosh. shetola oro al achas mehen umanicha, that's fine. So even Rabbi Yehuda, who says you need one sign on the inside, you have to tie it together or glue it together, will agree if I don't have a tefillin shel yad, all I have is two tefillin shel roshes. I can take hide and put it on the outside of my tefillin shel rosh, covered over. So now from the outside, it looks like one, and you can take your tefillin shel rosh and make it your tefillin shel yad, and that's fine. So says the Gemara, Moda, Hainu pluktayu. What do you mean? He agrees to me. That's our argument. Can you have tefillin shel? Can you have? Do you have to have only one sign on the outside? According to this, you're having really four signs, but you're covering with one. So what do you mean Rabbi Yehuda would agree to you? Who says he would agree to you? Maybe that's our debate. So Amarava, what it means is like this: Midvarav shel Rabbi Yossi, from the words of Rabbi Yossi, where he says Umodli Rabbi Yehuda, I see Chazer ba Rabbi Yehuda. From the words of Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda agrees to me, means that he actually retracted his opinion, and he actually agreed with my opinion that you don't have to have the one sign on the inside. Now, when you're putting your tefillin shel rosh, you have two tefillin shel roshes, and you're covering one up on the outside. So Rashi tells us that they're not taped or glued. They're not glued or sewn on the inside. Meaning, the case was where the inside is not attached to each other. The outside, you just put a hide over the outside, and all it is, it looks like from the outside like it's one. So to that, the Gemara said, hold on, if the inside's not sewn, that's our debate. So to that, the Gemara answered, okay, but you see from Rabbi Yosef, you have two tefillin shel roshes, and there, the tefillin shel rosh is not tied on the inside at all, and all you have to do is just put something over the outside of the tefillin shel yad. So we see from Rabbi Yosef that Rabbi Yehuda said that he agreed that that's all you need. You don't have to glue it or sew it on the inside. As long as you make it look like on the outside it's one, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, Ini, is that so? You can make your tefillin shel rosh into tefillin shel yad? The hashalach Rav Chananya mishmeid Rabbi Yochanan. It doesn't go. It goes the other way. Tefillin shel yad osin osa shel rosh. V'shel rosh ein osin osa shel yad. Why? Lefisha ein maridin mekdusha chamura lekedusha kala. You can make your arm tefillin into head tefillin. You cannot make your head tefillin into arm tefillin. Why not? Because you cannot go from a higher sanctity to a lower sanctity. The same way we saw by Sefer Torah and tefillin to a mezuzah. So now, why does a tefillin shel rosh have a higher level of sanctity? So Rashi explains is that there's one of the names of Hashem is Shin Daled Yud. We pronounce it Shakai to not say his name. So unless you're, it's in a verse. So there's a Shin, a Daled, and a Yud. So the Shin is on the tefillin shel rosh. The Daled is the back. The back knot, or the back of the head is the Daled, and the Yud is on the arm. So that knot. So one second, where's the Yud? So it has two. The head tefillin has two out of the three letters. Two out of the three letters of Hashem's name, and therefore it's a high level of sanctity. Another explanation Rashi says is, based off, I think, Gemara and Brachos, and we're going to see it later soon, it says that V'ro kol amei haaretz, that the nations of the land are going to see you, and they're going to be frightened from you. And what that referring to? It's referring to the tefillin shel rosh. When they see your tefillin shel rosh, they're going to have fear of you. It's going to invoke fear. In fact, Rabbi Daniel Gladstein, a Rav in Queens, very popular. So he writes in his book, he has a book about the Holocaust, about Tishua, but he has a part about the Holocaust, about the memoirs from his grandfather. And he writes that his grandfather and his great uncle would sneak tefillin. I don't remember if it was Auschwitz or a different camp, and they would risk their lives to put tefillin on. And one time, a Nazi walked in and saw either it was his grandfather or his great uncle, I don't remember right now. And he saw he was wearing tefillin. I think he had him. He was about to pull out his gun. He walked in, and he saw the tefillin. He got scared and ran away. Exactly as the Gemara says. A certain level of Yirah Shamayim, of fear of heaven, with your tefillin shalosh, can invoke fear in the eyes of the nations. And the Nazi ran away and it saved his life. So, two reasons why the tefillin shalosh is holier than the tefillin shel yad. Okay. So says, so how can it be that he told me you could take your tefillin shel rosh, put some hide on the outside, covered over, and you're good to go. So lo kasha ha be'atikta ha be'chadadita, meaning if you've already used your tefillin shel rosh, well, now it's already attained the holiness of tefillin shel rosh, and that you can't downgrade to a tefillin shel yad. If you've never used it, you just bought it, you never used it before, then it could still be downgraded. It's not considered downgrading. You can make it into your tefillin shel yad. Now, there's a big machlokas all throughout Shas called hazmana milsahi or not. That means everyone agrees that when you use something, for example, a bathroom, once you use the bathroom, it now has a level of impurity like a bathroom has, and you can't learn Torah in there. What happens if you're building a house and you designated that room as a bathroom and it hasn't been used for it yet? Or you've designated your tefillin, this will be my tefillin shel rosh, and you haven't used it yet. So that's called hazmana, like you're preparing it. So now, that's two opinions. Is hazmana called milsahi or lav milsahi? So, ulamandam or hazmana milsahi, if you hold hazmana is something, meaning you don't need to use it for it to attain that sanctity. Just preparing it, it already has that sanctity. So now what are you going to do? How are you going to answer that he took his tefillin shel rosh and downgraded it to tefillin shel yad? Once it's been assigned that you will be at tefillin shel rosh, then you cannot downgrade it anymore. So that the answer is the asni alayhu mi'ikara. He stipulated originally that I guess if there's a necessity or whatever it is, he made a stipulation originally. This is my tefillin shel rosh, and I need it for my tefillin shel yad. So that stipulation can avoid this issue, and therefore he can use it, and it's not considered downgrading because it was part of the original stipulation. Okay, so that is that. Now we get to these four sections, four parshios that we have in our tefillin. So how exactly the tefillin shel rosh we're talking about now? I think how exactly are they ordered? And this is going to be there's actually four opinions in the Rishonim, and right, famously Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, people have a Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, so they argue about the order of things exactly. Okay, so Tana Rabbanan, Ketzat Sidran. So how do you put it? So Kadesh Li v'Haya Kivyecha, everyone agrees goes together from the right side. Shema v'Haya Im Shamoa Mismol. Those two also go together from the left side. So now, here's where the problem is going to start. The Hatanya Ibcha, the Brisa says the opposite, that Kadesh Li and V'Haya is on the left side, Shema and V'Haya is on the right side. So, what's the answer? Amar Abaye lo kasha. Kan miyamino shel kore, and kan miyamino shel meniach. I don't know. I didn't fully exactly understand this. One is from the right side of the reader. So meaning, if you are, I guess if they're in front of you from right to left. So in Hebrew, we read from right to left. So from the vantage point of the reader, so you put them, these on the right and those on the left. Now, which one's first, which one's second doesn't say. Does Shema come first, or V'Haya come first, or Kadosh or V'Haya? That doesn't say. It just says that they're on the right. So you can have a number of different ways to do it. However, so that's from the Kore. But from the Maniach, when you're putting it on, so it goes the other way. You're putting it on, so therefore it's like from the opposite direction. You're sitting across from somebody. So I'm reading it from right to left. That to him is left to right. So therefore, it's not a contradiction. So for me, it's right to left. For the guy sitting across from me who's about to put it on, it's going to be from left to right. So the hakore kisidron. So the one who reads it in order. In the order, so Rashi says, in the order that they're written in the Torah. So the first one comes first, and the second one comes second. So that's why Kadesh v'Haya Kivyecha is Rashi says is on the right side of the reader, because those are in Shmos, and one second. Yeah, and then according to the reader, if you do those two first on the right side, those come first in the Torah, the Kaddish and the Haya. So when you read it, you're reading from right to left, and it's good. And therefore, you're reading the parshas in order. That which it said the opposite, that really they're on the left and not on the right, that was going on the guy that's putting it on. So which is the right, his left is the right of the reader. Okay. Now, yeah, the Kori Kor Kisidron. So the one that reads it in order, and that's why you have Kadesh V'Haya on the right, Shema and V'Hayim Shemoa on the left. And when you read it in order, and then the opposite is going to be, it's going to be for the person putting it on. Yeah. No, yes, they have a picture there, right? Go back. Right, yeah. So they have all four. So the article has Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. So Rashi has Kadesh V'Haya Kiyach Shema and V'Hayim Shemoa. The Rabbeinu Tam agrees on Kadesh and V'Haya, but he has V'Haya Im Shemoa and then Shema. So he argues on the ones that are on the left, so to speak, what order you put those in. And then you have the opposite. You have the Ravid holds Shema and V'Haya goes first, and V'Haya and Kadesh goes second. So he agrees to Rashi that Shema goes before V'Haya, but he disagrees that it's where you put that. And then you have the Shimusha Rabbah, the Ramami Pano. He has the opposite. V'Haya and Shema is first and in a different order. So there he agrees to the Rabbeinu Tam that V'Haya comes first before the Shema, but he puts it on the most right side. And then V'Haya Kivyecha and Kadesh, he agrees to Rashi that V'Haya comes first. Anyways, okay. 42.